Hello, sociology scholars. Mrs. Olson here. This is part 2 of our lesson titled The Nature of Deviance, and it fits in with our unit called Deviance and Crime. To recap our learning target, it says that you are going to be able to understand the sociological concept of deviance because we are digging a little bit deeper into what exactly defines deviant behavior. Now, in part 1, we ended with examples of positive deviance by looking at the definition of beauty in America. So now we're going to go on to the next part of our lesson. And still, this is our guiding question. What do sociologists mean by deviance? And our first note reads that minor instances of behavior that some might consider deviant occur frequently in modern societies. So I have a question for you. Given this note right here, what are examples of this? What might be a minor form of deviance in our society? So I'll give you a second just to think. Did anybody think about or say, maybe even out loud, lying? Is that a minor instance of deviant behavior? What about leaving work or school early? If you've been in traditional school, there's a definite time when you're allowed to leave. Did you ever skip school? What about yelling at another person? Are those minor forms of deviance? Okay, our second note. Sociologists generally reserve the term deviance for violations of significant social norms. So when a sociologist is called in maybe to a courtroom to offer their expert opinion, they're probably not going to define criminal behavior as deviant, okay? So that's what we're talking about here. Now, a deviant is a person who has acted in violation of one or more of society's most highly valued norms. And those significant norms, we want to focus on this part in that significant norms are important to most members of society or those with the most power, because they get to decide the large number of that group in society. They have a lot of power to make that decision as far as what is a social norm, or people who are in a position of power. Okay? So, has anybody ever been in trouble at school? Whether you were this age or even older. Written on the board, it says, "I will not run away from school." Is this considered a minor form of deviant behavior, or is it a significant norm? And then who gets to decide that? Children don't really have a lot of power in a society. A person with authority gets to decide who has that power and if that behavior is considered deviant. Okay, now questions to think about regarding this last part. What constitutes deviant behavior? So let's take this situation. Would a model wearing a bathing suit for a photo shoot in Times Square, New York City, be considered a deviant? How might her attire be considered deviant if she were in a country where the norms that dictate that women must be covered head to toe? So think about this for a second, and then I've got some images for you. In the time period that we live in now, a woman wearing a bathing suit in Times Square for a photo shoot, is that considered deviant? What about in other nations where females really only their eyes can show, hands, their shoes, and compared to this being a social norm and it not being considered deviant? So I'm going to end with this photograph of women who are supposed to be covered compared to this other female who definitely is not dressed like them. So once again, I'm showing those to provide questions about how to think about the definition of deviant and what exactly constitutes deviant behavior. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our lesson on the nature of deviance.